What's going on, everybody? Welcome on into the Sports Forums, The Buzz with Riggs Tamburo and Bryson Owens. Hope you guys are all having a beautiful start to your weekend. We got a lot to talk about here in the NFL world, college football world. We got guys sitting out from NIL deals making $2 million, but they want $4 million, Bryson, so they're nowhere to be found. Then we got guys in the NFL that are signed to teams. We got guys that are injured coming out pretty late here for a news rumor on stuff right before the draft. So a lot of question marks are starting to get risen in the NFL draft and the quarterback situations. A lot to talk about. Let's dive straight in, my brother, to what's going on with the Derek Carr situation. We're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about what Ian Rappaport put out there, because you could get the news from anybody, but we're going to go with Ian because who doesn't respect Rap Sheet? He said, the Saints suddenly have a major QB question. Starter Derek Carr is now dealing with a shoulder injury that threatens his availability for the season. Carr is weighing his options, including the possibility of surgery. Obviously, Derek Carr in 2024 had a season-ending injury there with the fractured non-throwing hand. And now there's a whole new injury with the shoulder, Bryson. Your thoughts on this one? At this point, does it feel like Derek Carr is a liability?
Well, it definitely feels like he's a liability, especially if he's weighing the possibility of surgery and maybe not even being available at all next season, maybe not being available until the halfway through next season, whatever the case is. Unfortunately for both Carr and the Saints especially, Carr did kind of the right thing earlier in the year for them, because the Saints, for those of you who don't know, don't pay attention to the cap situations for teams and all that kind of stuff. The Saints are pretty consistently at the bottom in terms of cap space. They just years ago went on this spree of spending all these big money free agents. It was a combination of a little bit of Sean Payton and a little bit of the GM at the time. They went on the spending spree trying to capitalize on the latter parts of Breeze's career, and they brought in all these big guys. They brought in all these big number of free agents, and now they're just like paying off all that debt from the dead cap hits from those players and all the expensive players that they signed. And now they just have no money. So Carr did the right thing by restructuring his contract. And this season, he's actually not very expensive. He's only going to be a $20 million cap hit, which is very cheap for a starting quarterback in the NFL today. So like the Saints, we're looking at it as like, okay, we might be in a decent spot moving forward now. We have Carr, who, whether you like him or love him, he's still a starting level quarterback in this league, whether he's like a good starter, bad starter, whatever you want to say. He's still a top 32 quarterback in this league, in my opinion. And so when you're getting that at $20 million, you feel a little bit more comfortable. But now with this injury, here is the money if they choose to move on from Carr. Like, let's say they draft a quarterback. We can get into this a little bit later as a possibility with some of the news in the betting markets for Shador and all that kind of stuff. If they were to draft a quarterback and just say, we're done with Carr, we're going to move on from him, we're cutting him, whatever. If he's cut before June 1st, now with his restructured deal, he's an $80 million dead cap hit this year and a $60 million dead cap hit next year and a $40 million dead cap hit in 2027. So he's over, almost $200 million in dead cap hit if you cut Derek Carr by June 1st. So you have to wait until after June 1st to cut him. Then the dead cap hit gets a little bit better. It's about $20 million per year. So it cuts it basically in half overall. But now you have to make sure you get your guy a quarterback in the draft. Otherwise, cutting Derek Carr doesn't seem like it makes much of sense either. So what was a really smart situation at first by Carr restructuring his deal has now kind of put the Saints in a bit of an awkward situation heading into the year.
Well, we see him here, obviously, with the number 9 pick overall, so we'll talk about what that's looking like. Once again, some QB odds changes going down as well for the NFL quarterbacks and where they're going to be going here now that the Saints are kind of in talks that they may be needed. Now, Bryson, before we get into those odds, I do just want to throw out there, I'm a little bit confused about how a guy who was out for the end of the season with a non-throwing hand injury, now, we'll call it 3 months since he was probably really throwing the football, if you would, at 4 or 5. I mean, I guess it could have been whenever, I guess, but let's just say 4 months since Derek Carr was actually working his body. How does he have a season-ending potential shoulder injury that needs surgery Is it in rehab? Is it benching? Is it trying to throw when his arm wasn't, back to full strength after his other hand injury and he hurt it? Like, what do you think it was that caused this? Because you can go out and throw after not throwing for 4 months and, really make yourself sore. In 2-3 weeks, you got to sit out, but that's not news. No one needs to know about that. So have you heard anything? Because I haven't heard anything about how this really came about. Was this an injury from last season? I don't know.
It might be part of an injury from last season. I do know, now this was a long time ago, so it'd be shocking if this was still an issue for him now. When he was a Raider, a couple years before they moved on from him, he had a severe collarbone injury on his throwing shoulder, on his throwing arm, that took him out for the rest of the season and to start like the next year. Like, it was a pretty bad collarbone injury on his throwing arm. And so as someone who I played the quarterback position all through high school, obviously I didn't play anywhere near the level these guys did, but I played the position. I played other sports that required a lot of hard work and labor and that kind of motion on your right shoulder. If you are out and not doing it for a while, it can cause some rust. And when you try and just like jump right back into it, and if you don't ease yourself into it, Carr might have just gone into a workout and said, hey, I haven't thrown for a while. I want to get going, and I want to make sure everyone knows I'm ready to go for this year. And he might have just pushed himself too much. And with a damaged collarbone, it could have just popped up again. And that could have just been an old lingering injury that never got healed properly. And it just popped up after being rusty for so long without throwing. So that's probably what my guess is it's something to do with a lingering, maybe he damaged a ligament or cartilage all that time ago and never healed properly. I don't know. It's very odd that it happened now. It's very odd that it just kind of happened without any like news on what it was. Because usually you hear when a guy gets hurt, it's like, oh, he got hurt during a workout or he got hurt doing drills on the side or something like that. It is, like you mentioned, strange how there's no like context for the injury.
And the one thing that makes me think you might be right, that it could be lingering from the collarbone and all that stuff, is just because the fact that he's contemplating surgery tells me it was one of those injuries of, hey, man, if you want to play through it, it might bother you a little bit. But if we stay in rehab, we take care of it, you should be okay. But it's never going to be 100% if you don't do surgery. The problem for Derek Carr is if he did get this injury somehow by doing something stupid, maybe he went skiing with his kids, bro. I don't know, right? And if he did, you never know what that means about his contract and the money. And like, so you got to wonder if it's football related, workout related, or if it's playing pickup basketball with the boys. Like, you just don't know. Like Patrick Mahomes has a contract, right? Can't play pickup basketball. He can't go skiing. He can't, all these different things. And if he gets hurt doing it, his contract voids. So there's just so many things to kind of figure out about this whole injury. But as of right now, guys,
before we move on, that's a really good point you brought up, because it reminds me years ago, there was a Denver Bronco, and I can't for the life of me remember who it is. But he was rehabbing from a season-ending injury he had the year prior. And when you're in the off season, even if you're using NFL facilities, it doesn't count as working out on NFL time, which means you're technically not on the clock. This is all on their time. All these workouts, all these training things, the NFL is not responsible for you getting hurt. So those contracts can be voided if he got hurt doing a non-team activity, like you mentioned. There was a Bronco years ago rehabbing from his injury in the workout room at the training facility in Denver, tore his ACL again, and was gone for the next year. And the Broncos were able to get off his contract because it was during non-NFL time. So it's a good point to bring up, because if it wasn't during official NFL time, the Saints could get out of Carr's contract and not have to pay him nearly as much as he's owed.
Derek Carr better hope the case, my brother, because that's going to be $200 million he ain't about to see. But with all that said, we haven't got any word. I just want to throw it out there that is the case, guys. That is just us throwing out a hypothetical. Could be true, could be not. We don't really know yet. But once again, shout out to Ian Rappaport for always dropping the best knowledge and the quickest stats of anybody. Him and Schefter, I must say, shout out to both those guys. But with that said, Bryson, let's talk about the replacement for Derek Carr here, if they are to go quarterback in the draft, if you would. I know we saw a few other quarterbacks today getting brought. We saw Joe Flacco, Drew Lock. We'll talk about them in a little bit. But the veterans outside of Aaron Rodgers, there's not really many options left at this point. You kind of have to start looking towards this draft. Obviously, You got Cleveland at 2, Tennessee at 1. Both those guys are supposed to be taking a quarterback. The Giants are reportedly taking a quarterback. And then obviously now you have to talk about the Saints there at 9, potentially taking a quarterback. So let's talk about, give me 2 quarterbacks that are coming out of the draft that you believe suit the New Orleans Saints.
Well, so I think the number one option that everyone's going to point to, and they are now the betting favorite to land Shedeur Sanders, is Shedeur. I think they have to really hope that Cleveland and New York decide to go defense. I don't understand why either of them would pass on Shedeur, but it does sound like both of Cleveland and New York are in love with either Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, so that sounds like that's where they're going to go. So now at that point, you just really have to hope that no one in between New York and you decide to trade out of that pick to someone who wants Shedeur. Like, they better hope the New York Jets don't make a move with the Pittsburgh Steelers to jump up all the way to 7 and get Shedeur Sanders, right? Because the Saints would love to land him at 9. Helps contract-wise, helps them long-term. He has them for 5 years at minimum with his 4-year deal and the 5th-year option. So I think Shedeur is obviously one to keep an eye on there for the Saints. Another one which may not need, they probably wouldn't use their first-round pick on, but I am curious to see maybe if they'd be interested in the 2nd or 3rd round, is a Will Howard out of Ohio State. He's a guy who, before the combine, he had a pretty rough combine, so his buzz kind of died out around then. But he was getting a lot of buzz early in the pre-draft process of, could Will Howard somehow sneak into that first round? Could he be that 4th quarterback behind Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, and Jackson Dart? And Will Howard, big body guy, athletic, can throw pretty much every ball you need in the NFL. Doesn't have a great arm, but has a good enough arm. He's a good athlete, not a great athlete. I think he could be someone who could benefit from learning under Carr. Someone who, Carr at Carr's peak was a really good deep ball thrower and someone who knew how to just get the chains moved whenever they needed. He was a very good 3rd down quarterback at Carr's peak when he was a Raider. So that could be a good veteran for Will Howard to learn under. So those are 2 names I would keep an eye on for this draft if they are lucky enough to land Shedeur Sanders at 9, or maybe they go into the season with taking a flyer on Will Howard and see if he can develop into something by the end of the year.
Is there any world, hypothetical, that you could see the New Orleans Saints, or not even the Saints, but more of the Browns contacting the Saints and saying, hey, how bad you want this guy?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a world.
And then the Browns, just to throw it out there, because if the Browns are looking at Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, and Shedeur Sanders, and I guess technically Cam Ward. We got to keep Cam Ward's name in here. Everyone keeps assuming Cam Ward at number 1. Pump the brakes, folks, because Shedeur Sanders could still go number 1. But with that said, the one pick that I don't like of all these rumors going around is Cleveland taking Abdul Carter. That one I don't get. I get the Giants taking Carter. I get the Browns taking Hunter. That makes sense to me. I don't really get the vice versa of that, though. It doesn't make sense in my book. Now, once again, though, hypothetical. Saints to trade up to 2 with Cleveland to lock in Shedeur and or Cam Ward, or Saints to go to 3 if Shedeur is not gone at number 2. Do you think there's a possibility of that to do what you just said and prevent a team like Pittsburgh to draft up to 7 or 6 to come get the quarterback that they want?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a possibility. At least the Saints would definitely do their due diligence by calling Cleveland and New York and seeing if there's a possibility. If you're Cleveland or New York and you're willing to trade, go from all the way from 2 or 3 to 9, you have to have 6 or 7 guys you really like. Like, if you're Cleveland,
should be there.
That's true, but I'm talking about, like, for Cleveland specifically, and for New York, I guess technically too. You mentioned why both have mentioned why we don't think it makes any sense for Cleveland not to go quarterback. My only thought is the reason they would do an Abdul Carter, build up the best pass rush in the NFL with Carter and Garrett on opposite sides of each other, and hope that next year's quarterback class is just that much better than this year and they can go quarterback next year. Because right now, Cleveland's quarterback room isn't looking too great, and they'll probably still end up being in this same position next year. So if they build up that defense,
Deshaun Watson's ready to play, bro. He's ready.
Ready to be the worst quarterback in the NFL again. That'll help him get back to number 2 again. That's for sure.
Damn
But if
right.
you're Cleveland or New York and you're willing to do that, you just have to have more than Travis and Abdul that you're interested in. You have to have like a list of 6 or 7 guys that you're willing to take in this draft class. And that way you can take that guy and get more draft capital. So I do think it's a possibility. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think either team wants to move that far down. I think they'd rather get Carter or Travis Hunter in that kind of order, but certainly a possibility.
Fair. All right, man. I'm not going to waste any more time here, obviously, on this situation. We could go all day about possibilities, and we got a lot of NFL draft shows coming up for you folks, about 13 days to the draft. So stay tuned. We always got you guys covered on NFL draft, and especially draft night. You better be with us live. We go live for about 4 hours on draft night. We start about 15 minutes before the draft begins, and we cover every pick through all 32, live reactions, live thoughts, live trade options, etc. So make sure to tune in for that. We will be live on draft night. But moving on over, my man, more to talk to you about here in the football world. And we are going to come back to what the Browns are going to do. And we want to talk about Shedeur Sanders potentially going there. But first, we got to talk about what's going on with Nico Lamalieva, the Tennessee quarterback over there. Reportedly, the spring game is going down today, and Nico is nowhere to be found. And the coaches have not heard from him, and things are not going on. Obviously, less than 24 hours until that spring game, so you got to hope that these guys can get in contact with him. But the whole thing, to sum it up for you folks that aren't paying attention to the world of sports, is that Nico wants more money. He signed a deal in 2022 for $2 million per year. Well, guys like Carson Beck are getting $4 million a year, and he's saying, wait a minute, where's my $4 million a year? So now, speculation, Bryson, does he get the $4 million? Does he sit out of the spring game? Does he transfer? There's a lot of things that are on the table now here. Mm-hmm. What's your take on this whole thing? If you're Nico, do you blame him for the way he's handling the situation?
Yeah, I think this is not a good look on Nico, especially because, listen, he was one of the best quarterbacks coming out of the country out of high school. He's one of the most electric quarterbacks in college football. Dude has a live arm, can make every throw. He's one of the best athletes at the position as well in the entire country. And when you're Tennessee, unfortunately for them, they're probably going to end up having to cave and just pay him whatever he wants, because a school like Tennessee, obviously they were lucky enough to get Peyton Manning 2+ decades ago, but Tennessee's not exactly the quarterback factory of the college football world. They don't exactly get these types of talent very often. The reason I'm saying this is a bad look on Nico is he wasn't very good last year. Now, it was his first full year as a starter. 2 years ago, he only got a handful of games, kind of played in some garbage time, wasn't really the starter a couple of years ago. That was the year Hendon Hooker was still in Tennessee. He tore his ACL. Nico filled in for him to finish the year. But last year, Nico wasn't good, and Tennessee very much underperformed. I'm looking at Nico's stats right now. 63.8 completion percentage. That's not good by any standards, certainly not in college football. College football, you're inaccurate if you're completing 67% of your throws in college football. 64% is not good enough. 2,616 yards, 19 touchdowns to 5 picks. That's not a bad touchdown to interception ratio, but just he wasn't as electric. He wasn't as consistent as they would have liked last year. And so to have a year as disappointing as it was for Nico, and then to have all this come out, I think that's a bad look. It's one thing if he would have gone out and been a Heisman finalist and throw for 33 touchdowns, and Tennessee was in the semifinals of the college football playoffs. That's one thing. To have your team underperform largely because you underperformed, that makes this all a bad look, and this is a bad look on the NIL in general, in my opinion.
I mean, look, I can't really argue with you on his stats from last season because I expected more of the Bulls last year. They just fell short a lot. They were in a lot of games. They didn't have that fourth quarter boost to get them over the top. And a lot of that was the quarterback play and the offensive play. It wasn't really on the defense as much as you might think by looking at the scoreboard. So it's a tough one for me here. I agree with you. I mean, look, man, you can't – look, Bryson, you and I played college football at the wrong time, my brother, because if I could have thrown 64% and made $4 million a year, I'd be having a good time. I probably wouldn't be here right now. But with all that said, I I don't know if he's worth $4 million. Now, you know me, and I'm not as high on Carson Beck either. And I get that that's kind of like his comparison player right now is, oh, well, if Carson Beck gets the transfer to Miami and he gets $4 million, well, then Nico should too. Well, I'm the farthest thing from a Carson Beck guy. And if you watch our shows, you know that about me. I don't like Carson Beck very much at all. But when it comes to NIL, name, image, likeness, Carson Beck is the more popular athlete. You can say whatever you want, but he's dating a Cavender twin. He's been at Georgia. He's been in the national championship. He's just done things that Nico hasn't done. So I don't really see the exact comparison. Now, if you want $3 million a year, hey, pull up to the front office and go, hey, bro, what do I got to do for $2.5 or $3 million? Like you mentioned, I think they probably just write that check. But now you want them to double what they're paying you. They're going to be like, all right, bro, well, instead of 64%, are you throwing 74%? Because we don't see the $2 million bonus that you're asking for here. And just by saying, oh, well, I'm starting again. So, like you mentioned, did we go on a playoff run? No. Did you lead the nation in any category? No. So what do you want to get paid for? It's hard because as an athlete, as a dude who understands business, I get it, and I get why he wants more money, and I'm not saying he doesn't deserve a little bit more money. Now, $2 million is still a ton of money, but in the big picture, I get it. I don't know, man. I'm struggling with this one because as much as I don't think he should be asking for more money, I get it, but I agree with you in the sense of he's handling it the wrong way. You don't just one day decide, hey, give me $4 million or I'm out.
Yeah.
What? Like you mentioned, they don't have many options, and I get that, but it's almost like he knew the spring game was coming, and he was like, I'm going to do it right before the spring game to kind of leverage myself to say, hey, you got 48 hours to get my money. And they're like, dude, chill. Rumor is he hasn't spoken with the coaches at all. He didn't show up to the final practice of the spring today before the spring game. I'll be honest with you. I don't think he's going to be at the spring game. Now, maybe they're panicking and they're getting this deal done late night tonight or in the morning. I don't think that's going to happen. If I'm them, I'm going to say, hey, man, look, come to the spring game, come do what you got to do, and we can talk about this. But if you're just going to forfeit on the team, it's a spring game. We don't give a shit. We'll let the backup play. He needs reps anyway. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't a $2 million negotiation, bro, that you're just going to get overnight. So I don't like the situation either. I understand it, but I have to say I think we disagree with the way Tennessee quarterback Nico Lamalieva is handling this situation. But any other thoughts for you on Tennessee, on Nico, or on NIL in general?
Yeah, I mean, even when because you were kind of comparing it to the Carson Beck situation a little bit, even if you were to compare Carson Beck to Nico, and like you said, you're not a Carson Beck fan, Carson Beck was better than Nico last year. Like, the only reason Carson Beck isn't back in Georgia is because Georgia is an NFL factory, especially at the quarterback position a little bit lately, and they can their backup quarterback could probably start on 75% of college teams. Like, that's how good Georgia is. Like, Tennessee doesn't have that kind of luxury. That's the only reason Carson Beck's not in Georgia still. Because Carson Beck, 64.7 completion percentage, still not great, but better than Nico's. Threw for almost 1,000 more yards, threw for more touchdowns. He did also throw for more interceptions, but he was a better playmaker than Nico was last year. So even comparing to that situation, I'd rather have Carson Beck based on last year's production than Nico right now. So that's a bad comparison for Nico too. It's unfortunate because I was all in on the NIL when it got introduced because I did believe players, these college kids who are treated as professional athletes for decades and decades, like they're pretty much pro athletes going to college and not getting paid for it. I did think they deserve to be paid for in the actual name, image, and likeness, like you're mentioning, where they got paid to be a spokesperson for brands. They get paid to be on the college football game. They get paid to represent companies in commercials. Like, that's what I pictured the NIL being, not a glorified NFL free agency. This is not what I was envisioning with the NIL, and it's really unfortunate that these 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids found a way to take advantage of it and make themselves $10 million by being mediocre-ish players in college football.
I know we got to get to our final topic here with the Browns, but I do want to just add to that really quickly. Look, man, the excuse before NIL, because obviously today now, right, it's trending. NIL is ruining college football. Blah, 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 blah. We should have never paid the kids. Blah, 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 right? I must say, guys, I played predominantly at D2 colleges throughout my career. And I left school with all of, we'll call it ballpark $3,000 in debt in my 5 years that I got to play for. And I wasn't under any scrutiny that these guys are under. And I wasn't going through anything that they're going through. Now, I wasn't flying on private jets either, but you get the point. Everyone who says, well, they pay for your college, that's enough. No, it's not, because they paid for my college and I wasn't going through what this guy's going through on a daily basis. So with that said, I'm agreeing with you. I like the brand deals and I like the commercials and the jersey. That's great. But it should kind of stop there. It really name, image, likeness, not 64% quarterback, bro. That has nothing to do with your name, image, and likeness. So anyway, this is the quarterback situation with Tennessee and Nico Lamalieva. We'll see if he plays in the spring game on Saturday. I don't know, man. Keep an eye out, guys. But if he does play, I don't think it's because he just signed a $4 million deal. But we'll find out. Maybe it is. 4 minutes left in our show here, and we do want to talk about the option for the Browns. We've thrown out the Shedeur Sanders name. We've thrown out the Abdul Carter names, but I do want to stick to Travis Hunter here because to me, there's 5 options, I think, that the Browns could go with if they stay at number 2 and they don't trade out of it. It's Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, Cam Ward, Abdul Carter, and Jackson Dart. To me, those are the 5 options. I don't think it's going to be Dart, and most people think Ward's going to go at 1, but I had to throw the names out there. To me, it really comes down to Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, and in my opinion, Ward. But people are throwing Carter out there. I just don't think Carter's the number 2 pick. But how you feeling about the options here, 4 or 5 different names?
Well, I think that the best option for the Browns might be, because they signed Joe Flacco today. They have Kenny Pickett on the roster. Who knows if Deshaun Watson will be healthy to go for next year? It seems like that they are just, for whatever reason, staying put at the quarterback position. I think the best option for them to be might just go out and get Travis Hunter, because Travis Hunter is, in my opinion, the best player in the draft, and he has a unique ability. They're in an interesting spot where they don't need Travis Hunter to be the number 1 wide receiver on the team, because they did have Jerry Jeudy on a breakout season. He was a Pro Bowler last year, big year for Jerry Jeudy. They have David Njoku at tight end, so Travis can be that number 3 or number 2 wide receiver option for them to start the year. And they have a pretty solid couple corners on the roster as well. So they're not going to be asking Travis Hunter to also be the number 1 corner. They can have him be the number 2 wide receiver and the number 2 corner, kind of limit his snaps on both sides so he's healthy and fresh all year, can play dominant football on both sides of the ball, and then go into next year with a hopefully better, more deep quarterback class where they can then fix their quarterback situation. So I think Travis Hunter makes more sense to me. I think they're going to go with Abdul Carter because I think they really like the idea of pairing him with Myles Garrett. But to me, Hunter's the best player in this draft. That's where I would go if they're going to stay off the quarterback train.
Bryson, the Browns have a good defense every year, and they don't beat anybody. I don't understand. It kind of reminds me of the Steelers a little bit. I don't understand why it's defense every year. You've had Myles Garrett, and how many playoff games have you won? And how many Super Bowls have you gone to? And how many times have you finished at 1 or 2 in the division? They don't compete. And you can have a defense all you want to, but if you only score 16 points a game, you ain't going to beat anybody. You're going to win 7-8 games. You're never going to go to the playoffs, and things aren't going to go well. I agree with you. You got to go with the best player in the NFL draft, and his name is Travis Hunter. There's no way around it anymore. I don't even think they should go Shedeur, and I don't think that they will, because like you mentioned, Joe Flacco's the backup who started a few games for the Colts last year, and you got that man Deshaun Watson who claims he's healthy, and they're doing ESPN stories on him and all these things. So I don't think they go quarterback. So we'll see what happens, but our pick for the Cleveland Browns is Travis Hunter. My man, we are rolling out of here for the weekend, guys. Make sure to give Bryson Owens a follow at Bryson Owens 16, myself at Rig Sports Talk. Check out sportsforummedia.com. Got news articles for you guys all weekend. Got our best bet articles, NBA, MLB, NHL. We got NBA and NHL playoffs right around the corner as well. So a lot of stuff coming for you. But until next time, guys, have a great weekend. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you on Sunday. Peace.